Hello everyone, I all hope you had a very wonderful day and a very blessed and glorious week, glorious holidays, and as well. As you can see, guys, I'm back in order to shoot our first episode since the holidays have exactly passed, and I'm here to exactly continue to do so. I'm very grateful for your support in subscribing and also viewing my episodes, guys. It means tremendously a lot to me. So God bless you guys. On today's episode, we're to talk about a supervillain known as Professor War, who's a member of a secret villainous organization known as the Founders, that wants to exactly rule and conquer the known universe and the sacred world, and also the sacred world and the sacred universe in a process. So we can exactly get to it. In Professor Ward's early life, he began studying all the everything else about the sacred world's history, about its greatest mission, its achievements, its greatest goals, and also understanding the battles of good and evil. He even began exactly studying all the forces of good and evil, about the original Lolo magic, and also how he became to be. He even knew that the sacred world has statues of the fallen heroes and the fallen villains who became powerful foes and powerful villains and powerful superheroes during at that time. He was so fixated and so obsessed into learning more about the sacred world, about the hidden world that's on the brink of war, and a hidden universe that's on the brink of collectible war. Professor will exactly discover that he could exactly also assist and also help in this hidden war and in this hidden world that's on the brink of war and that's quietly on the brink of fire, which he can also exactly lend his skills and his lending his skill sets, his expertise, and his talents as well. During at that time, Professor War exactly manages to leave the University of Boston in order to exactly discover more about the hidden universe and about the hidden sacred world, and all about its wars and all about its wars and its secrecy and its conspiracy within that year. During at that time, Professor was quietly approached by a four-nation hunter who was exactly able to offer him more than his driven purpose, rather to give him a purpose and rather to give him a purpose and a destiny where you can able to where you can able when you can able to sadistically when you can able to sadistically fulfill his destiny and his mission as well of long life discovery of the sacred world and of the sacred world's wars and conflict in a process which could help him enable his destiny and his mission in the process as well. Professor was quite enlightened and very quite surprised that a sacred, ancient, supernatural four-nation hunter that existed among the humans approached him, only a human being himself, with his level of intelligence and intellect, and he was so very quietly intrigued with this proposition. The four-nation hunter exactly took Professor War straightly to the Astro Prison, where he'll become the current leader of the Astro Prison, a prison designed to house super criminals and super villains and rogue, powerful dark magic users known as the Dark Druids, the Dark Witches, the Dark Faithful, and rogue, powerful superheroes and evil Phoenician hunters as well within a process. Professor was able to exactly discover that he could exactly further his studies about this hidden world and this hidden universe's wars and conflict, where he could exactly benefit from it, and he discovered that he could exactly help him with his mission and with his driven purpose. He accepted the proposition that the Phoenician hunter quietly gave him to him, and he decided to proceed on with his own plans and with his own mission. During that time, Professor will continue to study the wars of good and evil, able to learn more about the histories of good and evil and bad, able to study about the statues. The sacred world has many statues of the fallen heroes and many statues of the fallen heroes and of the fallen bad guys as well, as a resemblance of good and evil that are quietly waging war with each other, and as well as other nations, as well as other sacred nations and tribes and clans that are quietly at war with each other as well during at that time. During that time, Professor will continue to study and continue to tighten his grip and his oppression through the Astro Prison when all the other criminals, when all the other super criminals and evil warlocks and evil druids and dark magic users, such as those Shadow Empire warlords, were sentenced straight into the Astro Prison to remain in custody, which they were able to exactly do so and dispatched by the Four Nation Hunters. Professor Wall was quietly eager in order to learn more about these ancient creatures and these ancient beings and their powers and their talents and their given expertise as well, which could exactly benefit him. During at that time, he was approached by an ancient, powerful supervillain known as the Dark King, who exactly approached him from the shadows, giving him a powerful proposition, one that could benefit him in many, many ways, and also his organization as well in the process. During that time, Professor was exactly most quietly enlightened to be approached by a powerful figure who's quietly never heard of his name all throughout the rest of sacred history. The Dark King exactly told Professor that if he can exactly join his secret society of supervillains and he exactly offers his expertise and his talents, which could exactly benefit him in many ways, and he could in return give him more power and more power beyond his wildest dreams to controlling and manipulating the wars and the events of the wars, and also using the Astro Prison as a base of operation to release dangerous, deadly criminals out into humanity and out into the world of the sacred world and into the sacred universe as well, and into the known universe as well, which they could create chaos and havoc, and destruction, which could benefit him in many, many ways, and also in many, many ways as well, which could exactly assist him to seize more power and more control of the Astro Prison at that time. Professor Wall was very quietly enlightened and very quietly surprised with this offer and also intrigued with this proposition and offer, and he gladly shook hands with the Dark King, stating that now he's forever an associate of the founders and he's a high-ranking member of a secret society of supervillains known as the Founders. From now on out, he will assist them and aid them with their respective goals and with their respective mission, and also seizing power for himself and also for his enlightened colleagues known as the Founders. The Dark King was relatively pleased and very happy that their mission and their partnership has hereby been formed, and that they will continue operating within the shadows of the sacred world and within the shadows of the sacred universe in the process of the operation. On the 1st of July, when the United Heroes exactly brought up their greatest villains, when they took down their greatest foes and their greatest villains and sent them straight into the Astro Prison, Professor would discover that these villains could exactly help him with these goals and with these missions and with these top missions, before discovering that the United Heroes could pose a threat or an obstacle to his mission or to his objective in any way. He discovered that they could exactly be used for many, that their talents and their abilities could be used for so much more power and for so much more driven purposes in any way. On the 1st of February, the Universal Heroes were quietly formed and they were quietly made. They were quietly formed as a secret covert team to work on the behalf of the United Heroes. During the time, the Universal Heroes dispatched and sentenced many super villains and criminals straightly into the Astro Prison, where Professor War was able to come up with a plan on orchestrating a huge operation that could exactly benefit him and the Founders in many, many ways. This operation, guys, had numerous phases and numerous plans. The first phase was to make sure that the entire Astro Prison remained under the control of the Founders and of Professor War. The second phase was to release all the prisoners out of the Astro Prison to wreak havoc and chaos throughout the known universe. The third phase was to extract as much of the elements and minerals and the crystals of the Astro Prison in order to supply the suppliers, the mysterious suppliers and the mysterious buyers as well, which could benefit them in many ways. In return, the mysterious buyers will exactly offer them more powerful technology, more destructive technology than ever before, that they've never exactly seen, which that was exactly part of the plan. On the 3rd of February, the Universal Heroes were quietly sent in an undercover mission to make sure that the plan was quietly halted and that the plan was quietly stopped. They managed to stop the villains from breaking out of the Astro Prison and from wreaking havoc throughout the known universe and throughout the sacred world in the process in doing so. Professor War was quietly pleased that his plan was able to successfully work and that everything else is going accordingly to plan and order. He was able to speak with the supervillain known as Ice Faith, telling him that his plan exactly worked well the way it was meant to be. And the Founders are quietly, completely proud and very successful, happy that the operation exactly took the moment phasing of the planning, meaning that everything is going in schedule the way it was meant to be and intended. Both of the villains shook hands and remarked of their pleasantries and boasted of their victories over the success of the operation, and they were very reluctantly pleased completely reluctantly pleased that their plan worked off swiftly and with one fell swoop without any distractions or any interruptions from the heroes who were exactly able to intervene of the breakout of the Astro Prison. On the 1st of March, Professor Wall was able to begin his outside operation in understanding the dark crystal's powers and the energy, and as well as a power and capacity, in order to understand more about their powers and their abilities, and in order to understand the entity's powers and abilities. During at that time, Professor Wall discovered that he could benefit much more way to harnessing the power of harnessing the power of the dark entities and of the dark crystals to his greater use and to his greater capacity, meaning he could exactly work in many winning could exactly benefit in many ways in learning about this true dark power and its abilities as well, which he could exactly extract all the knowledge and all its secrets and all its life source for himself and for his enlightened colleagues as well. Within that time, on the 1st of April, Red Knight exactly approached Professor War within his office, appeared from the shadows, telling Professor War that the Order of the Five will exactly still compensate him for his good works and for his good works, and also for his good relationship with the founders and with his enlightened colleagues and with his members. In return, Red Knight exactly asked Professor War to secretly release all the criminals and all the super criminals and all the Shadow Empire warlords and commanders that were ultimately sentenced into the Astro Prison after the Great War. That were quietly sentenced after that were quietly sent from the Great War, from the Sacred Great War, in order for them to be released again outside to the sacred world and to humanity and to the known universe in the process, which he could exactly benefit more by seizing control of the Astro Prison and by placing it under his control. Professor Wall exactly shook hands with Red Knight, stated that the partnership of the founders still holds purpose and that he will exactly sadistically comply into doing so. Red Knight was quietly completely pleased and very quietly sadistically happy as he agreed with this proposition, as so did Professor Wall. During at that time, our Universal heroes dispatched one of their own teams in order to infiltrate the Astro Prison to discover a huge conspiracy taking place, which was orchestrated by Professor Wall again. This time, Professor Wall planned to use the power of the dark entities in order to infect the rest of the galaxy, in order to infect the rest of the universe and the rest of the galaxy, in saving the people, in saving the free people of the universe and of the sacred universe in the process, so that they will be under his control. But his plan was quietly thwarted due to the intervention of War Boy and also Mind Girl, who was able to save all the people and destroy the entities in the process. But Professor Wall was quietly reluctantly pleased as discovering that the plan was quietly meant to exactly work off in that way, which could exactly benefit him in many ways, meaning that everything else is going according to schedule, with the heroes' intervenings and in their interference exactly paved the way for his operation and also for his secret tactic, meaning that he's finally rising to the ranks and becoming the high-ranking official of the founders in the villainous organization. On the first of May, Professor Wall exactly was able to speak with the members of the founders through his video conference, telling them that the plan exactly worked well the way it was supposed to, meaning that everything else is completely under control. He released all the Shadow Empire warlords and commanders and all the other super criminals and super villains and all the assassins that were quietly sentenced into custody by the sacred heroes, and that were quietly sentenced into custody by the sacred heroes into remaining to the Astro Prison in order for them to wreak havoc and chaos again. And he assured the members of the founders that everything else is going according to plan and that the operation is quietly the way it's intended to be, without any other further interruptions. During at that time, Professor War heard ancient rumors and ancient sparkling rumors that a powerful dark witch known as Witchcaster and the rest of her four followers are searching for an ancient, powerful, mythical dark power that could hold the key, that could swiftly shift the balance of power radically, and that could exactly decide that this dark ancient energy, dark magical power could exactly hold the key to his studies and to his ancient studies and also to his ancient texts, which he could exactly discover to harness it for himself and make sure that the founders remain in power and become the sole rulers of the cosmos and of the rest of sacred existence in the process, in wiping out the universal heroes and in taking them down once and for all. Professor will continue to continued mining operations within the astral prison in order to extract all the crystals and all the technology, and supplying it directly to the Shadow Empire warlords and commanders at that time, which the Shadow Empire warlords and commanders exactly have formed a secretive alliance with another ancient secret society of supervillains known as the Founders. This alliance exactly and this partnership exactly had terms and agreement, which was the very much opposite way. The Founders will continue supplying the Shadow Empire warlords and commanders with many more worlds and many more planets, and in exchange, the Shadow Empire warlords and commanders will continue supplying the Founders and with more destructive and powerful technology as part of the deal and as part of the agreement, which that was exactly part of the deal and part of the pact, and it's still exactly continuing even to do so. Professor will exactly release all the other super criminals and all the other super villains secretly, unaware that the universal heroes are well aware that he is a super villain and also a psychopathic and a madman who's quietly after power and after controlling of the astral prison and control for himself, meaning that they can't exactly prove it, but Professor was very smart and very intelligent. During at that time, Professor exactly managed to create a hologram with the founder and the leader of the Founders known as Dark Ray, telling him that the operation is still going according to plan and that everything else is falling according to plan the way it's intended to be, and nothing else can ever disturb the operation that's quietly been planned though. Dark Ray was quietly reassured and was quietly reassured of the plan that everything else is going according to plan. Dark Ray reassured Professor War that everything else must go according to plan, not even a single scratch at the operation. During at that time on the first of May, Professor Wall exactly studied an ancient powerful entity of an ancient powerful evil of a supervillain known as the Fallen, who was exactly banished and trapped and exiled in another dark dimension for his crimes for waging war against the other sacred empires of the sacred universe and the other worlds. He discovered that the Fallen could be the key that can exactly change the outcome of the war and also shifting the balance of power radically into the Founder's control, meaning that the Fallen is the key to finally putting the conflict at halt, or to rather putting an end to it, meaning he could be the key to everything, as Professor Wall exactly believed, as well as the dark ancient energy, dark magical power that the rest of the other forces of evil are searching for, which he exactly began to further his studies into understanding the Fallen's past and the Fallen's history, and as well everything else about his dark and powerful empire and the rest of his conquests and the rest of his plans, meaning that the Founders could exactly benefit more from him and could exactly greatly benefit more from everything with the power vacuum that has consumed the Shadow Empire and left the Shadow Empire under chaos and destruction, with the Shadow Empire warlords and commanders fighting amongst each other for control over the Shadow Empire, and with Red Bolt, who's a supervillain and an ancient supervillain and a founder and a leader of another ancient secret society of supervillains known as the Dark Order, that is quietly ceasing to wage war with the Star Empire against the Star Prince and as well as the Star Witch Queen, which the two empires are looking at all-out war for sole control and sole dominance over the sacred universe. And Professor realizes that the four nation hunters are gravely in danger, with the monsters quietly being summoned from up and left to exterminate humanity and to remove them once and for all. He realized that the Fallen could be the answers to his calling, and could be the answers to his greater calling in order to put an end to the extermination, to wiping out the supernaturals and the aliens and superhumans in the process, which could benefit him and his enlightened colleagues in many ways. Professor Wall even attended a video conference of the Founders on the 2nd of July, where he was able to exactly reassure the members of the Founders that everything else is going according to plan and the operation is quietly going the way it's intended to be, without any other further disturbance from the heroes, and that wiping out the heroes and removing the universal heroes and the united heroes and the intergalactic coalition and the world heroes and the universal space heroes and universal defending heroes will exactly work according to plan the way it's intended to be, and that the operation will exactly be in place the way it's meant to be, by under control. And the Founders and the members of the Founders were quietly reassured as they exactly informed Professor Wall that everything else is going according to plan the way it's intended to be. Despite this, guys, Professor Wall is very much reluctantly smart and very, very ruthless and cruel and very, very intelligent and very, very intelligent human being who's been obsessed with power and more power than ever, and obsessed with knowledge, seeking knowledge to further his own ambition and his goals, even forming alliances with powerful criminals such as Queen Ivy, Mr. X, Red Boy, Silverface, Dark King, Dark Grey, Dark Witch Boy, in order for them to utilize their resources for his ultimate goal and for his ultimate plan, so that he can exactly control the astral prison and use the astral prison for criminal activities, to release all these super criminals and all these dark magic users to wreaking havoc throughout the known universe and throughout the rest of sacred existence and throughout the sacred world, which could exactly benefit him to seizing more power and more control for him and the founders as well. Professor Wu exactly believes in the founders' goal and in their mission, and is willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that that goal and that dream that the Dark King and Dark Grey exactly believe in will come to bear fruit, no matter what. He's a powerful, extremely human being with no superpowers. He's very intelligent, very, very smart, and very, very manipulative. He has a dark side and a thirst to doing whatever it takes to obtain knowledge for himself and for his higher superiors and for the high ranking, for his enlightened colleagues as well, so that they can remain in power and in control of the sacred war and of the sacred conflict by any or no means necessary. Professor Wu is very, very ambitious, especially when it comes to knowledge. He's very ambitious, and he'll do whatever it takes to seize power and control throughout the rest of the galaxy, throughout the rest of the universe, and throughout the rest of the sacred world, to make sure that the founders remain in control and in power of the war and of the cosmos in the process. As long as it can exactly benefit him and his enlightened colleagues, they will be in control of everything. And Professor Wu believes that the founders are destined to become the sole rulers of the cosmos, and is willing to make sure that their plans come to bear fruit, even wiping out their greatest obstacles, the universal heroes and the universal Earth heroes and the United Heroes and Intergalactic Coalition out of the way, and the Four Nation Hunters as well, which he learns that they can never be, which he learns that through their abilities, they can never underestimate them and never take them lightly ever again. Professor Wu learns from his failings, and he learns from his failings and from his past mistakes, and he learns not to repeat them ever again. He's a super strategist and a super tactician, very smart, dangerous, ruthless, cruel in nature, a human being who has lived for many years studying and investigating the supernatural, the sacred supernatural world that's been under war and conflict for many years. Unlike the other humans, Professor Wu is obsessed with knowledge and power, and more power than anything else. He will do whatever it takes to acquire and obtain more power for himself and for his enlightened colleagues. Well, guys, that's it for today's episode. I'll exactly see you tomorrow on the next episode. Enjoy your afternoon and have a wonderful, blessed day, and a wonderful, blessed day and an evening and an afternoon. God bless you all. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.